You don't know what's in it. That would be a great way to possibly create a nasty infection in your hive. One-to-one syrup is a very common spring feed. And by the way, I'm mostly going to be talking today about spring feeding in the summer and fall. There are different aspects to that. But in the spring, we often feed one-to-one sugar syrup. We also use 2-to-1, say in the fall, or there's 3-to-5 or 2-to-3. There's all sorts of different ratios you can mix up for different specific reasons. But keep in mind that the more water is in the syrup, the more you are going to stimulate brood rearing. Okay? 2-to-1 syrup, which only has half as much water, doesn't tend to stimulate brood rearing as much as 1-to-1 syrup does. Also, we might be feeding pollen. Depending on the pollen stores or what we're trying to do with our hive, we may want to boost the available protein for them to help them really stimulate brood rearing. And so we may feed pollen in addition to these other items, which are all carbohydrates. Make some syrup. How do you do it? This is something that some people have a hard time grasping, because 1-to-1 syrup is 1-to-1 by weight. Okay, pound of water to a pound of sugar. It just so happens that volumetrically it comes out about right. Okay, so a quart of dry sugar mixed with a quart of water comes out pretty close to correct. But if you want to nail it down into a real formula, there you go. A pound of water is about 2 cups. Mix that with a pound of sugar. I found it interesting that the resource I was looking at said that's a pint in volume. How many cups in a pint? 2, right? So it's 2 cups to 2 cups. This is the basic formula I use for mixing pretty much all of my syrup, because I buy a lot of sugar in 4-pound bags. You get it on sale. I find it somewhere on sale. I go get 2 shopping carts. I fill them to the top, and everybody thinks I'm cooking moonshine. And I come out of Kroger with 600 pounds of sugar. It's all in 4-pound bags. 1 4-pound bag to a half gallon of water. Don't make the mistake of filling up a 5-gallon pail with water and believe that you are going to add 20 pounds of sugar to it, because I will tell you from experience that does not work. Okay? If you're just mixing up sugar syrup for a hive, for a single hive, you can probably do it in your kitchen. If you're doing it on a larger scale, then you might find yourself with a canoe paddle and garbage cans. Yes?
I just want to know why the 1-to-1 stimulates more than the 2-to-1.
It is more like nectar. 2-to-1, the bees tend to store directly in the comb as winter stores, whereas the 1-to-1 is very much more like nectar. And so, stimulate. In the middle, I mix up most of my syrup in 5-gallon buckets. 5-gallon.
Sorry.
And I'm a big fan of the paint mixer on a drill. So I'll set up 3 or 4 5-gallon buckets. I'll go down with a hose. I'll put water in them all. If I'm really like on it, I'll have my buckets that have a little mark on them that tell me how much water to put in each one. I go down there and I'll start cutting sugar sacks open, and then I'll go down the line with the drill. Okay, 1-to-1 syrup, you do not have to heat it. Actually, 2-to-1 syrup, I usually don't heat. If you just stir it a little bit longer, you'll get most of it in solution. 1-to-1, definitely. Don't worry about it. You do not need to heat it. And this is not a lab experiment. Okay, don't be out there with the 1/4 cup measure getting it just right. It's just not that important. The idea is about 1-to-1. Okay, so go to the nearest half pound. So how much food do bees need? Now, it's a reasonable question. If you're going to feed your bees, how much should you feed them? Just to give you an idea, a worker needs about 11 milligrams of sugar a day. Okay, and that translates, if you're feeding a 1-to-1 syrup, the specific gravity and all doesn't quite work out, but it's about 22 microliters of syrup a day. 1 teaspoon is about 5 milliliters. That means that 1 teaspoon of syrup is food for 227 bees for 1 day. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that a 3-pound package of bees is going to eat about a gallon of 1-to-1 in a week. Okay, so if you're starting a new hive and you put a 3-pound package in, and you put a 1-quart Boardman feeder at the entrance, bless you, how long is it gonna last? Couple days. Okay. So don't put it in there and go back and come back in a week, because it'll be empty, it'll be long empty. If you're gonna feed them, make sure that you're timing your visits to the hive to correspond with about how much they're gonna eat. So here we're getting to the good part. How do we feed? There's 2 real broad categories of how we feed. There are internal feeders, that's kind of in between. An internal feeder is actually inside the hive. And the great benefit of feeding inside the hive is, first of all, you know who's getting the food. That hive is getting the food. If I've got 10